in. A symbol can transport our mind beyond the conscious or physical realm reality and really take us to a place that can access the depth of our unconscious. So it is through this symbol that we are able to transport or use as a vehicle to get to something deeper that can't be expressed or understood without that means for getting there. So symbols then express what is not said or what can't be verbalized or said or accessed just through our normal verbal interactions and communication. So moving out from symbols, there's symbolism, which is organized through this function of explanation and creativity. And they symbols or symbolism focuses on complex relations and the link between the physical world or consciousness or reality and metaphysical worlds or the unconscious and things that are kind of unseen or hidden. And so when we talk about symbols and symbolism together, we're thinking about symbols as a vehicle for understanding both the universal. So the collective unconscious, what does the symbol mean on a universal or across different people? And then particular, we can also use symbols and symbolism to think about what this means for the person individually, uniquely and contextually. And then symbolism is the art of thinking in images. So I like that quote because it kind of describes this idea that we've been talking about related to symbols as the means or the vehicle to get there, and symbolism itself is how we think and access these images and the unconscious and use this vehicle to think about what it means on both a universal and particular level for us. And moving further, thinking about symbolism, symbolic images are more than data. They are vital seeds, living characters of possibility. So this came from the Book of Symbols, which is kind of the dictionary or the universal resource for psychotherapists and people in general who are interested in studying symbols and symbolism. But take some time to think about, what does this mean to you? Reread the quote, kind of take it in, and try and consider what this means. Okay, so moving from symbolism, we can or are going to be talking about symbolic imagery. So when we're talking about symbolism, this is the idea of the art of thinking in images, and then symbolic imagery itself is how we unlock insights of things that are hidden from our conscious awareness, how we transport ourselves through the symbol, through the vehicle, through those means into another realm so that we can access and express whatever it is that needs to come out. And this is a way that is a key to our healthy functioning and ultimately gives us an understanding of the soul. So when we talk about the soul or psyche or this deeper level of meaning and healing, symbols are a way to achieve that. And through the use of unlocking these insights through symbolic imagery, that's how we get there. And then Vaughan, back in 1979, talked about symbolic images and symbolism, that symbolic images have this transformative power that can extend beyond our logical thought. So our energy that's invested in a symbol provides that gateway to the unknown, making our intuition accessible to the consciousness. So through this, like we've been talking about this whole time, he's reiterating that when we invest energy in trying to express and understand through symbolism, we're enabling our ability to develop insights, to use our intuition to make that unconscious piece or the things that are hidden or that we might not be able to express or access other ways to come out, to be accessible, to gain new insights, and to bring it to conscious awareness. And then symbolic expression is another related term, which means that Symbols not only can allow us to access this, but then it also can affirm our identity and assist us in making life decisions. If we come to this intuitive knowing about our soul, about our unconscious, about meaning on a deeper level, then it can help us to affirm what we already know. It can help align with who we are, what our soul wants, and it can assist us in making decisions about what we want and desire in our love, work, and play. All right, so now that we've kind of defined symbols and symbolism and symbolic expression, how do we use symbols? What is it that we do, or how do we use symbols in general? Symbols provide connections, again, between both the inner and outer world. They reveal our unconscious messages, and then once we are able to access them, we can integrate them into our consciousness and find meaning in our lives, make important decisions, affirm our identity, become more whole. So symbols are really useful in healthy functioning and development of the psyche and emotional well-being, but also on a holistic or larger level. Okay, so when us as play therapists or as psychotherapists are thinking about analyzing a symbol, there are these basic ideas or suppositions. So this is kind of like the ground rules or the framework from which we have to understand when we're looking at symbols in a broad way. So this is even goes beyond just using symbols for psychological or therapeutic reasons. If we are defining and thinking about what is a symbol, it always comes with these basic ideas and assumptions. So number one, nothing is meaningless or neutral. Everything is significant. So symbolism rests on that property or that quality. Nothing is independent. Everything is always going to be related to something else, like the parts of a whole. Everything's connected that aligns with this idea. Number three, the quantitative becomes qualitative. And so when we're thinking, it's always going to be about this kind of qualitative nature, even if it's coming out in numbers, and it constitutes the meaning of quantity. So even if we're talking about the quantity of something, that the qualitative aspect of it is important in that process. And then finally, every thing is a series. So series are related to one another, and the position of that in each series is a part of the meaning. So, like, for example, range of colors, range of sound, feelings, all of these happen in a sequential nature and are connected. And then finally, thinking about serial arrangements. So, this idea of discontinuity and continuity, the notion of proper order, whether they're symmetrical or asymmetrical equilibrium, and the concepts as a whole are important in the analysis of a symbol. So then moving more specifically to how we use it psychologically or through psychological interpretation, like we've been talking about this entire time, interpretation of the unconscious is what we're looking at when we're doing psychological interpretation, or we're coming from the theory of symbolism in this way as play therapists, as psychotherapists, as Sandtray therapists. So there are two things that we need to think about when we're interpreting the meaning here. As the therapist, what the symbol itself represents objectively. Symbols can represent things just objectively, like a plus is a sign that everyone can kind of interpret as adding to something, right? Objectively, it's used in math, 1 + 1, right? So there is something that is objectively represented. And then, so this is kind of like the universal piece that we talked about earlier. And then second to that, what it signifies as a projection or individualized case. So this is the subjective nature. This is where the interpretation piece comes in, and where we relate it specifically to what's going on within the psyche, or understanding of the healing process and the treatment process that is unique and contextual to the patient, the child, the person that we're working with. Okay, so more broadly speaking, when we're thinking about symbolic interpretation or analysis, there's objective, like we said, what the symbol itself represents objectively, our understanding. There's the psychological kind of midway point that what is the projection based on the circumstances of the individual who experiences this symbol. And then finally, subjective, the widest and most profound interpretation of a symbol is what does it mean at one given moment as applied to a given example. So even in the given moment, the meaning of a symbol can change. And I think sometimes we feel this in the playroom where while a patient is doing a Sandtray or a child's doing a Sandtray, right? It can be almost fleeting, and the relational part, the co-regulation, the co-connection part in that way is very important because that's how we kind of interpret and understand.